Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Health Seniors Human Services, Youth Education and Human Rights Committee monthly meeting. My name is May. I'm the chair of the committee, and we will start the meeting. But before we start, I'll hand this over to Larissa, and she will explain the meeting procedures.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Health and Human Services, etc. I would like to advise you that the meeting is being recorded. If you are not a committee member, we welcome you to sign in on the chat with your name and affiliation, if that's appropriate, to go toward our attendance. During the course of the meeting, if we would ask that you remain muted to eliminate background noise unless you are speaking. If you are joining by desktop computer, you can unmute yourself by touching the mute button on the lower left-hand side of your screen. And if you are on the phone, you can unmute yourself by tapping *6 or the mute button on your phone. If you have any technical difficulties during the meeting, I am here to help you. Please feel free to put something into the chat. I'll reach out to you and see if we can resolve it as soon as possible. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to me.
Okay, so we're going to start the meeting, but I'm just going to go over the agenda, the main items of the agenda. So of course, first we'll have the roll call vote, but right after that, we have our guest from Mount Sinai, Beth, Israel, and they will be giving a presentation with updates about everything since we last saw them in person, which was more than a year ago. Okay, so that'll be updates on the hospital, the behavioral health center at on Rivington Street, as well as the 14th Street Hospital. Then we'll of course have questions and answers and discussion. Then after that, we will be planning our we're planning an event, like a parent resource fair. And so it'll be I'll have planning on that. Thirdly, we are going to plan our committee goals. Each committee on CB3 is doing that. So we'll be doing that this as our last item. Okay, so we will have a roll call vote and approval of the minutes. So as far as the minutes are concerned, are there any changes or objections? Yeah, everybody is muted, so they have to unmute themselves or raise their hand. Okay, so seeing none, the minutes are deemed approved. So now our secretary, Thomas Rosa, will take the attendance.
All right, thank you, May. We'll start off with May.
Here.
Larissa.
Here.
David. David Crane.
He's waving.
Here. I was
Thank you.
waving.
I'm sorry, David. Let me move this. I have a lot of stuff open here. Eric Diaz.
Present, yeah.
Shirley Fennessy.
Yes.
Deborah.
Yes.
Tatiana. Tatiana, are you there yet?
Oh, she might be late, so she's probably not
All
here
right.
if you don't see her now.
Paul.
Yes.
Heidi.
Yes, here.
Ricky Wong.
Here.
Carmen Perez. Carmen, are you there yet? Okay, last call for Tatiana and Carmen.
I did see Carmen come in.
I thought I saw her before.
Yeah, I did admit her.
Okay. All right, that concludes our first roll call.
Yeah, she is here. She's Carmen
Yeah.
P, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
She did come in. I don't see her in right now.
She's still
Oh, wait.
connecting. She's still connecting to the audio.
She must. Okay. Yeah, she's still. Yeah, she's just taking a while to get in. So she is here.
Okay, so you can just mark her present.
Thanks for the clarification.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will get started. Brad Korn and Brad Breckstrom,
Yep, we're here.
the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you for having us, albeit in this somewhat zoomed, unpersonal manner, but it's been a long time and a lot of things have changed and happened since we last met. But so let me start with the elephant in the room. I know people have questions about what's going on at 13th Street and 14th Street with the new Mount Sinai Beth Israel. And we basically, during the pandemic, announced that there's a pause on that right now while we re-examine options for what the future of Mount Sinai, Beth Israel is, with everything remaining on the table, except, as we've always committed to, never closing the hospital. So as much as I know we want to question that, there's really not much for us to tell you, because in between two surges of COVID and now the vaccination program, we really have not sat down and figured out what the options that we haven't looked at the options closely enough to come forward with a plan. And that goes to disposition of property and everything else. In fact, I apologize that at around 7, I have to get off to go on to a Community Board 6, 197A meeting about the disposition of our property, and basically telling them the same thing. The one thing we have moved forward with, and I see people like Tessa on there and other people, is we have moved forward with the construction and work at 45 Rivington Street for the comprehensive health center there. And I'm gonna give that over to Brad because he has more, the other Brad, because he has more details on that. But we did pause that construction for quite a while also because we didn't think it was fair to put our workers in danger in the midst of a pandemic. So we did pause that for a number of months as well. And we have restarted that construction. And one of the reasons we move forward with that is we have the facility, and we believe the facility we're putting there is an improvement over the current options that we have at Bernstein. So it made no sense not to move forward with that. So with that, I'm now going to let Brad describe where we're at with 45 Rivington and what's going on there.
Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for letting us do this by Zoom. Obviously a different format than the last time we spoke, but the world we're in, and hopefully before long, we'll be able to meet in person again. So Brad mentioned, the bottom line, construction has now begun on 45 Rivington. The timeline for that has significantly been delayed. Our best projection now is that will be completed by the end of 22. There will be a phased opening of the facility, and it won't be fully open probably until first or even second quarter of 23. And again, a quick summary, really what we're proposing to move there is all of the existing outpatient and inpatient behavioral health services that are currently located at Beth Israel. Most of those are located in what we call the Bernstein building. All those services really are going to be, for lack of a better word, relocated, transplanted to the new site, and there will be an expansion of existing services. The services that are going to be added there are what we call a partial hospitalization program. It's really a day program where somebody can go for care for the day, but they don't stay overnight. There's also going to be what they call, and this really, I think, is going to be the first of its kind in New York City. Brad, correct if I'm wrong, but these respite and crisis beds. And they will be where an individual stays overnight, but it's not going to be as intensive as a typical psychiatric bed, for a lack of a better word. So there'll really be a little bit of a step down. There'll be, the regular psych beds, there'll be the respite and crisis beds, and eventually even a partial hospitalization. And then the other thing we're expanding there are what they call extended observation beds, where someone could go for up to 24 or perhaps even 48 hours, be observed, as well as get basic care. It would include all of adult and child inpatient services, or excuse me, outpatient services. And the inpatient services would include, we'll have 51 what they call detox and rehab beds, and 65 adult psychiatric beds. So that really is, I think, a summary of what's moving there. So construction has started. The timeline again is done by the end of 22, but it will be a phased opening, and it will be well into 23 before it's fully open. Brad, anything I'm missing? before we go to questions?
No, I mean, obviously, as far as the construction goes and some of the neighbors I see are on, we do post every week, updates on what's going on so people have an advance notice of how it's going and what we're doing. We're trying to work around a lot of things, including the MTA, but we're trying to be as transparent and helpful as we can be and as we move forward with it.
And before everybody got on, Susan was mentioning Brad, and Susan worked with one of the local restaurants on a couple of issues. So the point is, we really are trying to be a good neighbor throughout construction on the project. So any questions on either Rivington or 14th Street, or although there's really nothing to say other than we still have, made no final decisions.
Okay, so if you have a question, please raise your hand, your virtual hand, that is. But if you cannot, raise any hand and we will be watching. So I would like to, as usual, I'm going to take committee members first, but I will get to others as well. Do not worry. So I first see Susan.
Thank
And
you.
then Deborah. Susan first, Deborah next.
Thank you. First, before I ask my question, I do want to say that we have been working with Beth Israel and DOT, and I do want to say they've gone out of their way more than any construction I've ever worked with in my life to help the nearby businesses. My question is about the healthcare insurance that we wrote a resolution on a long time ago. I know this is not totally it's somewhat under Mount Sinai's control because they could accept the limited insurance on behavioral health, but I'm wondering if there's been any change. I know there were lawsuits, and I wonder if you would be able to tell us if there's been any change with the insurance.
I know there was some people were looking at stuff legislatively. I don't believe there's been a movement yet. I do know that was at the crux of one of their issues that Montefiore is going through with United as well, that they're fighting with stuff. But I will go back. We'll go back and I'll get you an update on that.
But you're right, Brad. There was some legislative efforts, but I don't think those have gone anywhere. But we'll get a better answer and circle back.
I'll get back to that to you guys.
Yeah, and if you could let us know the results of the lawsuits also.
Yep.
Thank you.
Deborah Glass.
Hi. So I guess my question is a real general question. So thank you for providing the that very quick list of what your expectations are for the opening and the dates and everything. But considering that we talked about this quite a while ago, is there anything that should be highlighted as any substantive change from the plan that you presented to us the last time you presented, and what you're just sort of outlining now is what you expect to be
For behavioral health?
Behavioral health?
Behavioral health.
The answer is no. There's no changes really
no substantive
whatsoever.
changes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Shirley Fennessy.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I think it's really important that you look into the United Healthcare piece, because I know pretty much every other hospital in the city is taking it. Bellevue is taking it. New York Presbyterian is taking it. So I'm not really sure what the holdup is with this, but I do really encourage you to look into it, because it seems like Mount Sinai Beth Israel is one of the few places that doesn't take United still for behavioral health.
Okay, fair enough, Shirley.
Oh, okay. Larissa, I don't know what you're talking about, but any other committee members? If not, I'm going to start calling on others. Okay, then. Next will be Tessa Huxley, and then Mark Hannay, and then George Kerrigan.
Hi, Hi, Brad and Brad. Just from the neighbor's point of view, I'd like to have a sense of whether you're replacing all the windows. Is that why there's scaffolding around all the walls? And how long that will be up? So we just have some sense of what our community is like, since we're so inundated by the MTA. Although I do want to compliment your team. You're far more responsive than they are. They're really just horrendous. So thank you for answering questions.
Oh, was that a text, Tessa?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to
Okay.
figure out if all of the scaffolding is to replace the windows. Is that what's going on, or?
Yeah, if we can, Tessa, I would like to get back offline on that with you. I don't want to give wrong answer. I think the scaffolding is up for the duration of the project, but I want to double check how long it's up and if all the windows are being replaced. Is
Okay,
really your question, right? Okay.
yeah, just sort of what the schedule is for all of the stuff on the outside, because once you
Tessa, I
get,
can get back to you on this. I can get back to you, or Brad.
Yeah, well, we'll get an
back
answer.
to you.
Exactly.
We'll
Yeah.
double check that, because there is different work that's going on. So,
Yeah.
and it's not just all the windows.
okay, thank you.
Mark.
Yeah, hi. My question is about sort of what has gone down at the hospital during the pandemic. I know that the hospital is certified for several hundred beds. I don't know how many of them are actually staffed on a regular basis, both pre-pandemic or since the pandemic. But I wonder if you could tell us a little, and I understand that you're pausing and you've not made any decisions and all that, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, you know, sort of what happened at the hospital, particularly maybe during the two peak waves that you've experienced, because the original proposal that you presented and that was approved by the State Public Health and Health Planning Council was, you know, a radical downsizing. So if you could help us understand a little bit about what had happened, what has happened, that I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
So, you know, I'll give you some high level stuff here. And again, we may want to connect offline to get really specific. But as a health system, and again, not just Beth Israel, but just to give you some magnitude of the scope, we have treated about 13,000 COVID patients, you know, in both of the peaks. At Beth Israel, obviously, you know, we had a number of beds, for lack of a better word, that were potentially available. That was space that could readily be reopened. They were offices, et cetera. And we, you know, immediately went to the state. That was part of our surge plan. We did, you know, bring back online a couple of hundred beds at Beth Israel, potentially for the treatment of COVID patients. Not all of them were fully utilized, but they were available. And it is something, you know, that we could still do if the need arose. On any given day right now, just to give you some sense, we're still in the middle of a second peak or whatever. It is, you know, slowly going down. As a health system, we've been around the 500 mark for several weeks. That's now starting to inch down. And on most days, you know, Beth Israel has, you know, 70 to 80 or so COVID patients. Brad, anything I'm missing that you want to
No, I
expound on?
mean, the only thing I would say is obviously during the first wave, there were more people throughout the system. This has been a lighter load.
Yep.
Clearly, but to what Brad said is, yeah, there was extra capacity that we had there.
Yep. We immediately went to the city and to the state and, you know, offered the space, and, you know, much of it was reopened back up. Mark, does that answer?
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to get a sense, you know, and obviously we all presume that you're taking all that into we'll be taking all that into consideration.
Well, obviously
the pandemic has changed the world.
The pandemic has
there's
changed.
Right,
It's
Okay.
made us. That's part of the reason we took the pause.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, George, and then Susan, and then
May?
Arthur Schwartz. Yeah, what?
Yeah, we also we have two members who are having difficulty raising their hands. So Arthur Schwartz and Judy Wexler. So they both have a question.
They just raised their hand, right?
Oh, get physically.
Yeah, Arthur was before and then Judy was recently, right? Okay. First,
Arthur,
George.
there's someone before me, George.
Right, George has not spoken yet. Is that true?
Right.
George Carrigan?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, George Carrigan.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Brads, I'm glad to see you're still staying healthy. This is George Carrigan from 322 East 14th Street
Yes.
Owners Corporation. I just want to confirm, so the 13th Street construction is on hold for now?
Correct. The same as we've discussed. We've emailed a little bit, but yeah, nothing has changed with that so far.
Okay, and do you know when you might resume discussions about it or plans, possible plans about it? I check in with you about every 3 months, I think. Is that about right?
I think right now our first priority is probably vaccinations. You know, dealing with that and vaccine shortages and all those issues right now. And I think, you know, that there are probably people that are tangentially looking at it, but right now our priority is getting through this.
Yep,
And then
through this
we'll-
wave and then the vaccinations.
Right.
All right, so it'll be a few more months before we really start to discuss it again then. I
And
don't want to hound
obviously
you.
as things
And
change-
emphasizing in a few months, construction wouldn't start, you know, because that's when decisions have to be made. I mean, so we're, in theory, you know, some time away if for any construction that would occur.
Right, I assume that would be like 2 years would be my assumption from now with everything going. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Great. Arthur Schwartz, then Susan Stetzer.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to follow up on Mark's question and answer to it. I was unclear. Are you saying that there are 500 beds generally filled now at Beth Israel?
No, that's COVID. That's people who are COVID patients throughout the system. And actually today's number, and that's including, you know, on Long Island as well. And today I believe it was about 455. So that's throughout the system. There's approximately 70 patients at Beth Israel that are
Exactly.
COVID.
And do you know, so the number of beds in use, do you know what that
At
is?
Beth Israel,
Yeah.
we have to get back to. I don't have, you know, the exact number on that. I mean, I know how many COVID patients they have on a given day, but I don't, you know, remember before all of this, the average census, you know, including the psych pieces was around 200, I think, Brad, if I remember right.
200, 210, depending on the given day.
Including psych. But I'm not sure of what the exact number is now. I mean, obviously it's gone up a little bit because of COVID, but I don't have the exact number.
The second part of my question is this: back, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months ago, sometimes time has been shortened and lengthened in the last year. The Village Sun had an article that said that quoted a spokesperson from Mount Sinai Beth Israel as saying that they had abandoned the plan to downsize or shut the building on 17th Street. Was that accurate, inaccurate? What's the story with that?
Well, we met with the, you know, members of the working group, and Susan, I think you may have been at that meeting last summer. I don't recall the exact time. And I'm gonna, you know, the message that we delivered then, and, you know, the media statement that we, you know, gave, you know, to any media inquiries on it, really was simply that, you know, the pandemic has changed the world, and that as a result, the project is being put on pause while we reevaluate all options except closure. That, you know, everything is back on the table except closure. And that really is the bottom line.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So next will be Susan Stetzer and then Judy Wexler.
Looking to the future, considering the backlash that was experienced by the group you had running your field house, would Beth Israel not do that again in the future?
I think Brad's trying. Brad, unmute yourself.
Do you mind? I missed the first part only because
He's
my phone
asking
rang and it cut you off.
about Samaritan's Purse. Would we have Samaritan's Purse back again if all things being equal?
I'm saying considering the backlash.
Considering the
and not-
backlash.
And not talking about what happened, just going to the future. Would you not do that again?
I mean, you can't answer that really without looking at the backlash. I think the answer is it would depend upon, to some degree, the severity of the pandemic. We have to do everything we can to provide care to people who need it. Brad, that's
again,
that's a hypothetical. We can't.
It's a hypothetical, and it's not
hard
made,
to answer a hypothetical question.
And also, the decision's not made at our pay grade either.
Well, maybe you can just take it back.
No, that message I think has been taken back.
It's resonated.
That's resonated. That message has clearly resonated.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, next will be Judy Wexler, and after that, Andrea Lyman.
And I apologize. I'm going to stay on with my face, but I'm going to mute because I'm going to be on community board.
Okay,
6.
and I can stay on.
Yeah.
Thank you, May. It's Judy Wexler. And thank you for inviting Mount Sinai Beth Israel to do this. I think it's really important to know who you are talking to about changing plans and what community involvement is there in the changing plans. This is a good start, but it doesn't include the detailed discussion that's needed about what the community feels is needed, believes that rather than feels, believes is needed, and how to accomplish that. And I don't think I've ever heard the Mount Sinai representatives talk about community being involved in this discussion, just saying we're reevaluating, but that's it, and it's internal. And, part of the concern is that to use a term, the empire takes over and it's distant from the community and leaves out the involvement. So I would hope that you're thinking about doing it differently.
Hey guys.
Well, yep. So I absolutely, Judy, that when you say do it differently, I would say I think we had a very transparent process, in the previous iteration of what was being planned.
I'm sorry, what you did was report, not discuss. That's very different.
And we will have, an open discussion with the community for feedback in, making decisions about our plans moving forward without question. Well, you want to mute, Judy, I think.
When does that happen?
We don't have the exact timeline yet. And I think, none of that really is going to begin until sometime after really the pandemic comes to an end with the issue of vaccine. We simply have not focused on that yet. And, we're still a ways away from starting that process.
It's always good to have the discussion before you have the firm ideas of what the institution would like. So I would suggest that even during this pandemic, it's a very good time to think and talk.
Absolutely. And we will absolutely be in touch, and getting input and feedback from the community as we move forward.
Okay, Andrea Lyman.
Hi, first I'd like to second what Judy said about community involvement and participation. Nothing could be more important. But my question is, since I understand you're on pause, but in the rethinking and discussions, is there any thought to converting Bernstein, well, of course, the old New York Infirmary, started by the first women physicians in the country, converting it into nursing home beds?
I think the honest answer is everything is on the table. We're not in the nursing home business directly, but every option is being put on the table.
Thank you, because as you know, we've lost considerable nursing home beds, both in this neighborhood and in Manhattan and New York City as a whole.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I actually had one question. I don't see any other hands raised right now. So the Behavioral Health Center at 45 Livingston Street, the construction is going on, and the plan for the rest of the hospital is on pause. So since the Behavioral Health Center is part of the whole system, would that those other plans affect the Behavioral Health Center?
I'm not sure, to make sure I understand your question right. It made sense for us to move forward with the behavioral health component for a couple of reasons. One, as Brad said earlier, we had a lease on Rivington. So we were sort of, the baby had come out of the bath or whatever to some degree. So it made sense to do it from that perspective. But this is actually something we've been considering for a long time. This is really taking all our behavioral health services, consolidating them, expanding them. So that piece, is something we had to do regardless, and it made sense, and we want to proceed with it.
Oh, no, I know that, but let me clarify. I meant that, like you said, the world has changed, right? So, the need for number of beds may go up and down. The last year taught us. So, there are beds there will be beds at 45 Rivington Street. So does that go into the equation?
Absolutely.
Planning?
Yeah. Although there are no changes in the plan there, but there is still some flexibility that if we eventually needed to add some beds, there would be some ability to do that. So that was absolutely part of the equation. But if you look at our census, our psych census, really has substantially gone down, even since the pandemic, especially on an inpatient basis, that the census has gone down. Where we really need to do the expansion is on outpatient services. And that's really where most of the expansion is for the.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were saying something about the
every time my phone rings,
expansion
every time my phone rings, I get cut off. I'm sorry.
Okay. You were saying something about the expansion for the.
Yeah, so the real key where we need the expansion, we felt, was on outpatient services, because if you look at our inpatient census, that has continued to decline even during the pandemic. That we think the greater need will continue to be and is on the outpatient area. So we're expanding the outpatient services, and then we're adding those different levels of care, such as I mentioned the respite and care beds, the partial hospitalization, the day program. So those services are being expanded and added, that in the overall continuum, there will be more available space per se, or slots for care as a result of those added services.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm saying that if there's like another pandemic, it could be used, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
the building there could be, let's say there is, God forbid there be another pandemic like this again.
Absolutely. It's a hospital. So it could absolutely be used, part of any surge plan could be used for non-psychiatric services if needed. Okay. We're doing that now. To be candid, there are some of our other hospitals, we have psych beds that have been converted to COVID units. And we could absolutely do that at Rivington.
Okay, that's it. That's all I had. Are there any other questions? I don't see any hands raised. It's about 7:07. Okay, well, if not,
thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And Brad K sends his greetings too, and we'll stay in touch.
Bye-bye. Talk to you guys
Oh, you're there,
later.
Brad. Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, sorry, May? Oh,
Mhm.
they're already hopping off.
Oh, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, it was about vaccinations. That they are, that she wanted to make, wonder if they were aware that vaccinations are, that the sites are canceling appointments and not offering to reschedule. And it was very difficult because she was trying to schedule an 82-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Oh, someone sent
Yeah.
you a message?
Yeah, in the chat.
Oh, okay. Maybe they're both off, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
both off.
Okay, so maybe, yeah, I saw that on the website, on their website. Could we just send that to them, Susan? About these vaccines?
About canceling.
Or find out how they can find out.
Yeah, how they can find out how to reschedule, because the community member was stating that she's not able to, that they canceled the appointment and there was no offer to reschedule. This
If you
was for
could
an
just-
elderly member.
Just forward the stuff to me with the person's
Absolutely.
contact information.
Okay,
with it.
absolutely. I'll get that for you. Thanks.
Okay, very good. All right, so our next item will be the, oh, is Naomi here? Well, okay, okay, let's find out. Hey, Naomi, are you here? I don't see your name on the list.
I don't see it.
All right. So let's talk about goal planning, committee goal planning. We'll skip that and we'll see. Okay, so that was the fourth item on the agenda. So all of the committees are, yeah, I don't have any structure for this, but all of the committees are to plan their goals for the year. So we, so all the committees are being asked to have a discussion on planning their goals for the year. It could be, the goals can be any kind of goals. It could be maybe different areas that we want to, cover that we haven't covered before. Maybe there's some sort of, expansion we want to do in terms of, or maybe some, I'm sorry, maybe there's some like kind of knowledge or information that we need to know more about. We have a lot of outstanding projects like the school, and the Allure Group nursing home. And so this is just, so we're just opening, I'm just opening this up for, ideas at first in terms of the goals. We haven't done this in a long time. And I don't even recall doing it. Or if it, I think, oh, Susan?
Yeah, we did it for several years. It's actually required by city charter, but like many things, most of the boards ignored it, except when Scott was borough president, he had all the boards do it. And I think one of the things that it did was kind of focus the committee on where they wanted to go for agenda items and that sort of thing. We did it for about 4 years, I think.
Oh, I just saw that Naomi came on.
Naomi's back as on, yeah.
Is she? And then she doesn't seem to be on anymore. I don't know.
I'm here.
She's on, May.
Okay. Well, we started another agenda item because we didn't know that you were coming. Hey, does everyone just go back to the, okay, so Naomi, you're here, since Naomi is here now, can we go back to the Parent Resource Fair, everybody? Since I don't hear any objections. Okay, it's okay, it's Parent Resource Fair. Okay, so we're going to talk about planning for the Parent Resource event. Shirley since Tati is not here yet, do you have a
Yeah.
report on the topics she collected?
Yeah, let me just find them 1 second, please.
So as you recall, people were supposed to send ideas to Tatiana about topics or subtopics for our parent resource event. So a few people did, and then I think we also found, retrieved the notes that she took a year ago when we were planning the in-person event, which can be applicable to now.
So, right, so I know I have the topics that I shared. I'm just trying to find the topics that she had as well.
Yeah, she just had a couple of other things. It was just about what to get out of an IEP, and then having a presentation of community-based resources, particularly from CBOs.
Right.
And then I think you elaborated on the IEP.
Yeah, so here's some things I was thinking, and Naomi, I would really appreciate your feedback and obviously helping us to craft this. Advocating for your child around their IEP, including having a parent advocate in a meeting, how to get more thorough or outside testing if needed, why go through the IEP process in the first place, or what's the value for having an IEP? What are some options for accommodations, including alternative schools, but also, so counseling, just all of the myriad of services that your child could qualify for through the IEP process. What kind of how accommodations might be different or enhanced for remote and hybrid learning, how to read an IEP and sort of what is the process, like how often is it renewed and what happens in an IEP meeting. And then I think also something around mental health and how that could be addressed with an IEP, because I think we're going to see a lot more need for that coming up post-COVID especially.
Yeah, and I know when we last discussed this, we also talked about students in temporary housing.
Mm-hmm.
That there's something in addition needs to be done for that. Students with IEPs are also in temporary housing.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, and then you would also want to include ENL students and other demographics. But yeah.
Right. So yeah, all of the topics I have, not everyone contributed topics, so I don't know if people have ideas now, but the few people who have contributed topics have revolved around students with IEPs. So Naomi, we were asking you if you had any feedback on all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to start with the IEPs in general. I think you often don't know you need an IEP until something's going on with your child's learning. And then it's left onto the parent to figure it out. There's no system. The way the system works is that it doesn't help you. It actually makes you go out and find the information. So the more people that we sort of give the information to, the more helpful that is. And I think having a sort of step-by-step approach in how an IEP works, so from the time frame to, recommendations of how to get an IEP, like, oftentimes, for instance, I always tell parents to get their own evaluations because it's easier. You probably can get the evaluations done a lot easier than waiting on DOE, and also private evaluations are more thorough than those of DOE. So sort of tips like that, and also informing parents of the timeline. Parents don't know there's a timeline when it comes to all this, and what their rights are. And then what happens once it gets implemented in schools, and like, what do you do to make sure that the IEP is being executed as such. So I think all that matters. I I think it's important, like if we want to delve into alternative schools, maybe that can be sort of like a subset of the conversation, because oftentimes parents don't know that there's alternative settings, but oftentimes these alternative settings cost money, right? And that's and when you're talking about $80,000 a school year for someone that's living in temporary housing, that's a lot. But there's a process, and there's ways that you can get that paid for. It's just, again, it's incredibly time consuming, and even people who are savvy like myself, I've helped a couple of people do it. I'm like, this is like overwhelming for me, and I'm not doing it. So, I mean, we can create some space to do that. But what I would love to do is really focus and hone in on, like, if your child is in a school that they're supposed to provide, services for, what can we do to make sure that the services that they're supposed to get are being given? I think counseling is a big deal. I think mental health this year is going to be a huge deal. So maybe creating some space around that would be beneficial. We can talk about all sorts of reasons why you need it, not just pandemic, but social, emotional supports. Everything affects children, from where they live to being in temporary housing to, being in a home with siblings. And, sometimes settings may not be as safe as your own home, and how do you handle that, right? So I think those are definitely a couple of great topics that you guys have suggested. I think that would be good.
Anyone have anything to say? Other committee members?
May. Hi, Larissa. I
Yes.
definitely would like to include the topic of alternative schools. I know it's a daunting process because I had 2 children that I went through that process year after year after year. I mean, it's definitely worth it. There are some children who truly need that specialized setting, and parents should know it's available and know what the process is so that they can plan for it.
So do we want to just make them aware that there is these alternative schools, or do we want to also dive into the process? I mean, it just sounds I don't even know what this process is. It already sounds very complicated to me.
It's complicated. Usually
So we could
involves
introduce this
suing.
idea that there are these alternative schools, and it is a possibility, but
Well, you also had to
diving
discuss.
into it is another
Yeah,
thing.
well, I think you can touch on the basics. I think the cost of the schools, the potential that you may not be reimbursed, that there are ways to make. There are contracts that you can sign with the school that they will accept a reduced price, reduced cost based on what your settlement is with the DOE. But there are a lot of alternatives, and it's definitely worth pursuing for these kids.
Okay, Thomas and then Paul.
Yeah, so Naomi, I want to know, as part of our presentation, is there possibly a way we could, or is it even a need to have some of this information get over to some of the principals? Like, for example, they have a budget allocation in Galaxy every year for homeless students. And what I've noticed with some of the schools, it seems some of the principals don't really know what to do with it. And I know that each school has local issues that are dealing with their homeless populations, but maybe we could provide a certain kind of an inventory or menu items that would meet a need in the district, because sometimes they're not really thinking globally. So I just want to know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where partnering up with our local temporary shelters come into play, right? If they're the ones that actually work with the families, and they would know what they need. you know, some principals do know and have, from what I've been told, the money allocation went from $100 to $200 per student because of COVID. I have a principal, a high school principal, that's partnered up with a vendor who is creating duffel bags of stuff, from school supplies to like socks and toiletries and blankets and sweaters, for $200, and each student gets one. But I think I think that's an easy ask. I think we just work with the temporary housing and say, you know, give us a list of things that your family often needs and you cannot provide them, what that is. And it's easier for principals to buy things in bulk. And they can just give it, and they know who their families are. So it's easier that way. If I can just backpedal a little bit to talking about alternative school settings, I think it's very convoluted and very complicated, I think. But if we keep it super simple, and like just say, you know, after cert, because I also don't want to, I had to walk a fine balance here between really empowering families with information, which is my first intention, but also making sure that families go through the process that they need in their public school. And if every single process is exhaustive, then is when you look, because that's legally the way you're supposed to do it. Then you look at an alternative private setting and what that looks like. So, you know, letting them know sort of the basics of what they need to do. And then, you know, maybe we can bring on someone that's an expert in that field and say, you know, like a 30-minute sort of rundown on what that is, because that's, you know, just keeping it simple, because that whole thing is really complicated.
It really is, and it all depends on what type of school the kids are applying to. So we can't get into details on that. But yeah, what you mentioned was very important. Just the fact that you have to exhaust, that's the most key important thing. If you do not exhaust all of your public options, you are never going to get reimbursed for that school. I think, you know, we have to make things realistic, but, you know, also these schools do offer, they have their own advocates that can help parents once they get their students in. But if we explain the basics and the beginning process to make sure that they are covering all their bases, you know, they may just end up finding that one public school that really works. They didn't expect it to work. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth making sure parents know all of their options.
Okay, Paul Rangel, are you still interested in speaking?
Of course I'm interested, May.
Oh, because you put your hand down. I wasn't sure.
My virtual hand was tired. We're talking about education. It needed to go down. I'm sorry.
Okay. The floor is yours.
Since we're talking about ideas and considering the situation we're in now, and if this is a resource fair, I don't know how this could play in, but just maybe helping families navigate the virtual education world of Google Classroom and Zoom, and how to best help their children, especially when they have, you know, it could be like 3 or 4 kids in the house, all on the same Wi-Fi connection, all trying to go into class at the same time. How do we best help those families who don't know how to navigate that well? Just because, you know, but no, it's tough for us, and we're on the board, and it's tough for us to navigate Zoom and thumbs up and raising hands and all that stuff. So imagine families who have very limited technological resources and how to use them. I don't know how this could incorporate into a resource fair or a training of some sort at that resource fair, like half-hour training on Google Classroom. This is what you should be looking for your students. I know maybe some of the schools may be doing that themselves. I know I do that for my program. We try to help the young people out before they even start classes with us with all that stuff. So I'm just thinking about that, what that looks like on a macro level within the district.
Okay. Anyone else? I don't see any hands raised right now. You know, Shirley, you had mentioned this learning loss. You know, this is back to the IEPs. You mentioned a lot of learning loss, you know, in this whole year due to remote learning, or no, a need to readjust the IEPs or make changes. And,
well, yeah.
Do we need to also provide that information and resources at this fair?
I mean, I think it's more, it's to be aware of the fact that we're going to have children starting school in first grade who've basically never been to school. So they may not have been somebody that would be early identified, but now they may be. So I guess it's just like when we're talking about why an IEP, to be considerate of the fact that there are going to be children who exhibit social emotional needs due to not being in school, who can't really, you know, participate in classroom routines. And then the early data showing that there's at least a 50% increase in grades K and 1 of students who will be in need of greater interventions, who will be reading way below, or, you know, performing way below level, or just kind of unable to access school. The early grades are the most significant, but, you know, we're seeing data throughout all the grade levels showing a great increase in students needing assistance. And I think I'm hoping that, you know, the DOE is addressing it on the whole, but I feel like there's going to be a greater need for students that need IEPs due to this.
And when you say this data, you mean in the city, right? In New York City?
I mean, national data, I don't have specifically New York City data, but the national data trends are showing that there's at least a 50% increase in grades K1 and 2 of students who will need a lot of extra supports.
Okay. So we have a list of subtopics under the IEP. We're talking about, you know, children in public schools and, you know, parents knowing how to get everything they need in the school that they're in. Then there is the alternative schools as an alternative option if they choose that. There is this whole thing about remote learning and the virtual learning. I mean, I don't know when everyone expects to go back to in-person, but so what would be the format of this? I mean, it's virtual. What kind of, you know, is it like just a presentation with a panel and Q&A or breakout rooms, or?
I think in order to keep everyone sort of cohesive, I think it's better to keep everyone in one place. Once you start doing breakout rooms, you're forcing people to split where they want to hear. And I mean, I'm just in pre-COVID in-person training, you know, conferences, I always hate when I have to pick one because I want to do them all.
Okay.
So I think if we pick, you know, 2 topics that we can have, you know, sort of maybe one can be a panel with people with an expert sort of talking about with slides, because I think that's really important, the visuals of this, talking through the process, and then maybe doing another topic on something else. That way, and people all in one place, and, you know, they can stay for what they want to stay. And but I always fear when you start doing breakout rooms, you start losing people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't pick the leave room, they leave meeting and whatever. So
Yeah, I mean, I think for parents off, sometimes, well, to me, sometimes simple is better, and simple is a lot, you know,
Right.
especially when you're on Zoom.
Right. An IEP is really exhaustive. So I mean, if we want to be as sort of cohesive but thorough as possible, I think like a 45-minute conversation can be had with another 15 minutes of Q&A, because people will ask questions. They always do. But also, if we can get a couple of, experts that will be willing to answer questions. Maybe if you email them the questions, they'll answer it, because A, we're not going to have enough time to answer questions, and B, sometimes they get really personal. It's oftentimes like about their one situation, and many people they prefer not to do that, not to have conversations about their personal stuff.
Yeah, right. And I agree. We should not have for different reasons, we should not,
Right.
So the whole thing could be an hour, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think, I think we can do that honestly, we can do that exclusively for an hour, hands down. Then the conversation is, do we want to do something else after that?
Okay. Does anyone have any ideas? So far as something that's an hour long, maybe something with a 45-minute presentation with a panel, and then some, or maybe the questions and answers and the panel is 45 minutes, plus we have an additional 15 minutes and can do something else. That seems to be what is being suggested. Is that correct? And if so, Deborah and then Thomas.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think you might have just clarified it. Is the question on the table that this resource fair be singularly focused on the IEP process, or an hour on IEP, between the conversation between the conversation about it and the Q&A, and then something else afterward? Are those the two questions? Is that the this or that we're looking at?
I thought the something else was also, well, I don't know what the something else is. I thought it was also related to IEPs, but you can,
I think the bottom line for me, I'm just a little confused. Are we asking if we want to do something in addition to talking about IEP after spending an hour on that topic? Is that what was just asked?
No, after spending 45 minutes, then there's another 15 minutes.
Of Q&A.
Either Q&A or something else that's related to the same topic.
I see. Okay.
Or maybe something more general. I think it's good to have one topic. It seems like there's plenty of material in one topic to do one thing.
And that's and people will, I think you'll get people who are singularly focused on that one thing, and it's
Did you have
resource fair. So okay.
Well, did you have something else in mind?
No, I think that's something that, as everybody has already said, it's a huge process. And there are lots of questions that folks, it's a huge process. So, I think it's a standalone topic. I think it could be a standalone topic.
Okay. Thomas?
As Naomi was speaking, I think it would be helpful when we invite the community, whether video or flyer, if we can have an email that they can send questions to ahead of time, it would be really helpful, because I agree. I've been in so many meetings, and it becomes a person's testimony. And it's so, I understand that they want to get their need met, but if we have the stuff ahead of time, we could already address some of it without having to take time away from people who have more general questions.
Okay, that's a good idea. We should definitely get questions ahead of time. Larissa, are you raising your hand? Yes.
Yes, physically. Sorry. Yes, not waving. Hi. So yeah, I agree with that, because a lot of times the questions will overlap, and we don't want to have the redundant questions. We want to get as much information as possible to the parents and to the caregivers. So it's kind of volunteering myself, I guess, as Zoom facilitator. I could collect questions, consolidate them, and see where we have common topics, so that we're getting everyone's answered, and so unique questions are being addressed as well. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
very beneficial.
Yeah, we're also talking about maybe like if parents have to register for it,
Right.
included in their registration is, what questions do you have? So we get it actually before, not during, although we could get it, we could accept questions during as well, during the event as well. if we
Would it
like.
be possible also to send them information if they volunteer their email after the fair? Like, for example, like connect and emails or website links that for the speakers who came to the resource fair, so that they could have that afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's generally a good idea. Like, I go to a lot of these, webinars or trainings and things. And one of the benefits is that, you get like a take home packet, or, just like the stuff you pick up, at the event. So I think I think we should do it as long as, we have their email. Paul.
Yeah. So just this seems more like a town hall than it does a resource fair. Since if we're gonna ask for community members to potentially submit questions, I know we did something similar like this for transportation for open restaurants back in January, where we had questions submitted to the office ahead of time, and then we I guess we ran through them and put them all together in a big packet. So maybe that's something similar you want to look at, May, for this. That was the best. That's the way we approached it in setting up that town hall. All the questions were submitted to the office ahead of time. We didn't vet them necessarily, but if there was redundancies, we did check over them.
Oh, okay.
So are you, is
Susan is being
Paul,
volunteered to do something.
did Paul just think he was volunteering me?
I wasn't volunteering you. I'm just saying that's something we did.
It is something we did, but it was, I think probably, I'm just concerned about how, how big the response would be. Whether it'd be something we could deal with, that's all.
It's just a thought. Doesn't have to go that way. Just a thought. You know what?
I mean-
I retract. Delete that portion of the recording, please. Thank you.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just asking, do we think the response would be like 20, 30? We could manage that. But if it got really huge, I don't know if it might be an issue. But do we, maybe Naomi would know from previous experience, how many people do you think would respond to that? But you're muted.
It's hard to tell. I think honestly, this really all depends on the outreach that's done. I would certainly have schools push this out to our families. I will certainly push it out to our listserv. I would ask if CB3 would push it out as well.
Of course.
But it's hard to really, pre-COVID, I tried to do this in person. And it wasn't as successful as I imagined, even though we built out an amazing sort of program. And not many people came, but it was also on a Saturday and it was also raining. So I don't know. I think the convenience of being home on a computer, getting the information may bring a lot more people out. It's hard to tell.
I was just wondering, concerned about being able to handle the number of questions that might be come in ahead of time.
Oh,
but
well,
I can't imagine that would be more than like 20 or 30 at the most, right?
Well, also, I think if it's part, what we normally do, for instance, when we host the chancellor to come to the district, which was supposed to happen on the 17th, is no longer happening. What we do is we do the same thing. We collect the questions way in advance, and we create a Google form. We send it out with the flyer and say, if you have questions, drop it in the form. And then, a week before the event, we go through the questions and, the repeats, we sort of, connect them together. And then the sort of the glaring hot topics, if you will, we then share out.
Can I ask, were you able to do that on was it a New York City website?
What do you mean?
Because I don't think we can put a Google form on our website that's hosted by New York City.
Oh, I don't know. What we did is we created the Google form, and as part of the e-blast with the flyer, we linked the we use MailChimp. So we
Okay,
linked,
so we could do
we
that.
linked, we linked the link to the Google form. It says, you know, for questions, click here. If you want to submit questions, click here or something like that. And then the person clicks and then it goes to the Google form and then they fill out the question.
So that's a very easy way that just gets rid of the whole problem. So that's a very easy way to do it. It's separate. It's not like we did for the town hall because it's not on our website because we can't do it on our website. But any member of the committee could just create the form and collect the questions.
Yeah, and then it gets, you can export it to an Excel sheet and just curate it that way.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Does anyone? Okay, so we're talking about collecting questions before. A little bit about publicizing, and we're also asking our two city council members to like co-sponsor it, so they could also help push it out. And maybe we should also say it's like a, I mean, anybody can sign up for this thing, but you know, I don't know if we want like people from all, but well, I guess the focus is on our local community, right? And then getting back to the other topic that we had, one of the topics was suggested to talk about in terms of resources. I don't know if this is just like putting out a list of like CBOs. Was it you, Thomas, who something about CBO resources from help from CBOs that parents could get from community-based organizations?
Yeah, I had mentioned it would probably be helpful to have some kind of a ticker or some kind of media thing at the beginning that people could see some of the CBOs that are available to them. There might be something right in their neighborhood that they never knew existed that could have provided homework help or, you know, any kind of other services that families would be looking for. So I was thinking it would be helpful. Now, if you want to make it IEP specific, maybe we could just isolate it to CBOs that assist family through that process.
Does anyone know if there's a list of, I mean, I know there's lots of lists, but is there a list that's readily, that we don't have to make, that's already there? The one that's IEP specific. I know everybody has their own list and it's all different and it's not centralized, I know that, but I don't know if there's one thing that schools already use, or sounds like the answer is no. Okay, so Thomas, you're just talking about a list, right?
Yeah, a list, just people that they can actually contact who would be able to assist them beyond, you know, the day of the presentation.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's where having an organization as part of the panel will come into play. Like, you know, like something like Include NYC should be on the panel because they exclusively deal with, you know, with things like this. Maybe the Children's Aid Society, I know Advocates for Children, those organizations who are already doing the work. And we can, as part of the panel, they can share out their information. And if you have a question, you can follow up with them.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So since we're talking about the panel, who should be on this panel?
I would love if we can incorporate a student. I think that's what we wanted to do, you know, pre-COVID, we want to have a student. I think if we have a student sort of talk about, you know, sort of the experience of having an IEP and what that meant for them as a learner, I think that would be incredibly insightful. Besides having maybe 2 or 3 orgs and maybe a parent. I think, you know, keeping it small because everyone wants to talk. So if we keep it to 2 to 3 organizations, a parent and a student, that would be perfect. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree having members of the community share makes it much more powerful. The dyslexia event I went to at CEC2 was made so much stronger with the child and the parent both speaking. They weren't related, but it makes it so much better.
Yeah, at the we're planning this last year. We talked about Include NYC. We talked about inviting someone for Advocates for Children. And yeah, we didn't have any other ideas about speakers at the time. How about the citywide council on these 75 schools? As a parent leader, I don't know.
District 75 is very specific. District 75 is usually for students who are more with severe needs. I mean, definitely they have IEPs.
Oh, okay.
But there's tend to be more, sort of like mild to severe autism or physical disability or something along those lines, or emotional disability. So that's where District 75 can be more specific. I think if we want to capture a larger audience, that we can mention sort of the different school settings that there are. But if it's again, this is why having a panel where people can follow up with, they have a question about District 75 or something to that effect, they can follow up with someone, and I can get someone from DOE to someone from the Office of Special Education to come and present as well if that's needed.
What they do or what's supposed to happen. That's what they would talk about.
Right. What they're supposed to do, what they often don't do, but at least they can answer the questions, sort of like if there is any procedural things that DOE is supposed to do, what they should do if it's not being done. Because I think this is where it's very key, is if something is not being done, what do you do? And there's a procedure and a process for all this. And in order to get it right, you're supposed to go through the motions before you can start yelling at other people above them. So
the parents should know what their rights are, right? What is supposed to be done. Is there a local CBO that we should be inviting who maybe provides some of these services or assistance? Like, so we have, I mean, Advocates, well, Include NYC doesn't provide services, right? And Advocates for New York, for Advocates for Children does provide some services, but is there one local as
Include
well?
NYC does. Include NYC has a hotline.
Oh,
They have a hotline for families that you can call in. And if there's something that is very specific, they have experts that can take the calls, and they help navigate families through the process. Advocates for Children is a little bit more of the legal aspect. So I think that's where those two things can partner up really well. I know Lori Posnevsker from Include NYC. She's still, her son actually goes to a District 75 school here in our district.
Yeah, she was on that panel that you were on with us. Remember, it was at University Settlement?
Yeah. So she's super good. I mean, she's still there, and she's an amazing. I mean, it's a better perspective because she's a parent who's gone through the process, and also that's what she does for a living. So it helps. But yeah, and Clue NYC does provide services as well. On a local CBO, I don't know. I have to really search. I think where the local CBOs tend to come in the IEP process is usually for like mental health services, because they often do provide mental health, and a lot of our schools are partnered up with at least one CBO. So if it's not Henry Street, it's Education Alliance or Grant Street. And then if a child has an IEP of mental health, that's where the CBO normally steps in and does whatever the IEP says, if it's individualized or group setting or whatever it is.
Oh, should we invite someone from there, one of those settlement houses, or?
Yeah, I mean,
Which
it wouldn't
one?
hurt.
Hmm.
It wouldn't hurt. I mean, then, Henry Street or at Alliance, either one of them would be fine.
Do we want to take in mental health clinic?
Well, I know people at Alliance. I don't know anyone at Henry Street, or I don't know anyone, but I don't.
I know, we know
Yeah.
people at Henry
Yeah,
Street.
Susan
Yes,
knows
we
people.
do.
at Henry-
We know
I
that
personally don't,
Henry
but yes,
Street
we know
real
people.
well.
We know people everywhere. Okay.
We've had David Garza at our committee meetings several times.
Yes. We had them all at our committee meeting several times. Okay.
Hi.
How many speakers do we want? 4, 5? 4? Any ideas, anybody?
That's 40 minutes if you just gave them 10 minutes each.
Okay, so that's 4, right? And did we said we wanted this student?
Yes, absolutely.
How shall we, any ideas about how to identify a student? Thomas?
I have a few students that I could present maybe a bio and let you guys give you a choice of students who may want to participate. We do have a very other parents too that are very active. Like one of our parents in our program was instrumental in helping to establish a middle school, a D75 middle school on the west side of Manhattan. And now the students are receiving services through us. So, I mean, we do have a pretty vast network of people that we could present that who are receiving services from our district.
So you're saying that
I could
they
give you a
could-
few names,
Okay.
I could reach out to a few of them and see if the parent or the student is willing to, participate.
Okay, that would be good. Okay, so Thomas is going to identify some students, but present us with a bio first, and we'll select, and he will see if they want to participate.
Eric is honking his horn and raising his hand.
Eric?
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I thought that was just, okay, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, sorry. I was talking and anyway, I wanted to ask Naomi about the mental health piece. Would it be helpful to have like a Roberto Clemente come, who that's kind of their forte, and they're sort of like a CBO, but I'm not quite sure if they classify as one, but they have that grassroots and their whole focus is mental health. Have you seen them involved with the school system at all?
I personally don't know. Does anyone here? Oh, Eric, do you know, or you're asking us whether or not they've been involved with the school system?
I'm more asking.
I personally don't know. Does anyone here know? does Roberto Clemente do any work with the schools, especially in mental health? Or provide any services?
They've done work with
Naomi?
other organizations, not necessarily schools, but like places like Avenues for Justice and stuff like that. They've done help with, but I don't know if they've actually outreached into the schools. That would be a hell of a get for any school to help with evaluations and IEPs and whatnot.
Would you say that's kind of a good thing, Paul? from what you see?
Absolutely. Like there's a part of me that wishes the door that was in CB3, because we do offer a lot of those similar type services, even though our counseling list is actually a wait list right now. But like we could have always assisted in stuff like that. But we're in CB2 instead.
Maybe I could gauge Roberto Clemente's interest or just find out more information and get back to you guys with what I find in the next week to see if it even makes sense.
Yeah, see if it makes sense for them.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna contact them and gauge whether this is something they're interested in or.
Yes.
Okay. So we have a little bit on the speakers, we have a little bit about the timing, the format, the topics. What's next? Outreach. Is there anything else on the program? At the last meeting, we had talked about providing translation assistance. So I know that Gigi's office had said they could possibly do it, but depending if it was just like regular, language, somebody in-house could do it, but if it required more like technical, language, then it might mean somebody would have to be hired. I don't know if they were offering to hire someone. They didn't say, but that's what they said. And they're not, I don't see her here now, although I think Patricia is here or was here.
Pat is still here, but for the last couple of our land use committee meeting, and their office actually went to CAU to get translators to the mayor's office.
Okay, so that's that was for the land use, right?
Yeah, Gigi's on leave now. That may be someone else in their office.
I'll ask Gigi.
Okay.
But it would go through CAU. I think
so.
Pat, I think Ian in your office is the one that arranged it last time.
I'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, and Tati had did contact Carlina's office. So they just wanted to know about the time and the format and all that, or the actual, we didn't have much information. So she'll get back to them, but we could see if they could also ask them about providing Spanish language or someone maybe at CEC could do that in terms of Spanish language translation. Should we try to ask Carlina's office?
The way we can get translation is through DOE, and we have to submit that a month in advance. And so we just have to give them a heads up, and then they have to then see if they can secure the translators. But if we plan this, like if there's a date, like as long as it's not like next week, right? Hypothetical. But if the event, let's say it's in early May, for instance, it gives them enough time to search for people.
That's the best thing then.
Yeah, I think this is education related. I'd rather not go to CAU. I'd rather be at DOE where they're the experts in this field.
Absolutely.
Okay. The only caveat is that whatever we do, we have to like then make sure we have the flyer and stuff done at least a month in advance. So then I can tell DOE.
Who's doing the flyer?
I can have my AA do it. It's not that big deal.
Okay. And it sounds like we don't have a date yet.
No, we don't.
So we really can't invite anyone or confirm anyone without a date.
Yeah, we do need a date. So it's already March. Should we really look at May then? Or late April?
May.
The month of May, early May?
Yep.
Any suggestions about a date?
I would suggest not a weekend.
So it would be like a weeknight in the evening, right? Maybe starting at 6:30 or so?
I would say earlier than that, because if you're on Zoom, to start late to finish late is a drag. So at CEC we start our meetings at 5, so that way when we're done at 6:30, and we got the rest of the evening for ourselves. But not saying that we have to start at 5, but I would say between 5 and 6, like no later than 6.
Okay, so parents are not in transit at 5?
No, I mean, also understand, like, if you're doing a Zoom, you have it on your phone and you can listen to it.
That's true. Paul?
Just a quick question. Do we have potential agenda items already on for May? For the month of May for our normal committee meeting?
Not yet, but you want to do this for a committee meeting? I was going to suggest May 4th, which is a Tuesday.
Just a thought.
Oh, so if we do it on May 4th, it will be, definitely will not be any committee meeting on May 4th.
Right.
Because it's, how's that, everyone? May 4th? Is that? Okay, Naomi says thumbs up. Thomas says two thumbs up. Okay. Okay, hearing no objection, we have May 4th. At about 5 o'clock. Is that for everyone else? Is that too early? Our speakers, I don't know. Well, you have your CEC meetings at 5, right? And you get good attendance at 5, better than at 6. Naomi? Oh, you're on mute.
We start our meetings at 5. Everyone knows our meeting starts at 5. So those, if people will jump on when they're ready to jump on. I mean, if you want to do it 5:30 or maybe 6, totally guys, up to you guys. I would just say don't go past 6, because if you go 6:30 and 7, you're potentially getting off the meeting between 8:30 and 9, and potentially, and like no one wants to. It's dinner. It's a weekday. You got kids.
Yep.
Okay, Shirley, you say earlier is better, right?
I think earlier is better. Absolutely.
Okay. How about 5:30? Okay,
That sounds great.
5:30. So those who leave work at 5 still have half an hour, and if they're in transit, they're in transit. So we may have an audience who's actually like just signing, sort of logging in on their phone, but they may actually be traveling. But that's how the participation will be. Okay. Very good. So we have some to-dos. There are some organizations to contact. We're going to some organizations to contact. We'll talk to Tati about, confirming with Carlina's office. As far as translation is concerned, Naomi is going to ask DOE about a Spanish language translator and a Chinese language translator.
Mandarin and Cantonese?
I can do that.
Oh, okay. So there'll be 3. And then just in terms of the Zoom, Naomi, are we using the CEC Zoom? Or should we use the CB3 Zoom?
What's your capacity on the Zoom?
Our contract ends in March, so we'll be getting it. Right now, the borough president's paying for it, so we'll be starting a new contract, so I don't know yet.
Got it. All right. Well, our thing is paid through DOE, and it's we have 250 person capacity. So I mean, not that we need it, but
okay. So why don't we go with that since we don't know on our end? All right. Anything else we need to talk about right now? As far as this item is concerned? Okay, it looks like that's it. All right, so thank you, Naomi. Bye. Okay. Okay, next item, committee goals planning.
I think you used up everyone's brain.
How much can we do this over a period of 2 meetings? Like, we don't have to do it all now, do we?
Can I suggest that you have people send ideas to you and then send everyone the list before the next meeting?
Okay, if we can do that, I would prefer that actually. So if that's permissible, we will do that.
Could I ask, could we set a timer of, let's say, 5 minutes or maybe 10 tops, and ask people to just say ideas here? It would help get creative juices flowing. People might then have better ideas to send in if people just can, brainstorm for 5 minutes. I'll set the timer if you want to do something like this. I don't want to stretch the meeting out much more than 5 minutes. Or does everyone think this is not a good idea?
I think that's a great idea, David.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
We just hear kinds of things. Let me also say that I don't know that anyone needs to capture these as notes because these aren't the ideas. If that's the process you would rather follow, May, is have people actually send in after the meeting.
Okay, let's do that. The next 5 minutes, it's 8:11 right now. Ideas, raise your hand. Susan?
Susan raised.
I wanted to be last, but no one else raised their hand. My idea was, we've been talking a lot about social inequities exposed by COVID, but we don't have any real facts. We don't have any data. And I was thinking about contacting different social service providers and asking them if they have sort of areas that they've really seen these inequities because of COVID. And if we do find organizations that have this information, ask them to come in and speak to us and also to bring any data that they can.
Okay, that's number one. Next. Larissa?
So kind of along the same lines, during the pandemic, We have seen an expansion of the use of telemedicine and telehealth. That has been funded during the pandemic, but it is we're in danger of losing that funding. And that is a terrific way to level the playing field for people who, let's say, cannot take off days of work to travel to a doctor's appointment. They may lose pay. They could go on their phone and have a telehealth visit with their physician. This is one of the points that we advocated for to support in the budget. So I think that's something that bears more research and support for.
So you're saying we need more research and support for telehealth?
For telehealth and the funding of telehealth, because right now it's in the budget, but that's going to expire. We want to make sure that that is that continues into the next year's budget.
But what is the community board action? What is the committee action on that?
To support, I have to put it something together. We want to. I'll see what we have on our talking points from Gouverneur regarding support for telehealth funding of telehealth medicine.
So it sounds like you're talking about voting on a resolution.
Yeah, formulating and voting on a resolution for support.
Yeah, so one of the goals would maybe also to research it more and, telehealth, and it's particular to our community and our populations.
Yep. I know that Gouverneur has used it quite effectively during the pandemic.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, we have about two more minutes. Deborah Glass.
Hi, so this is nothing new. I just think that it, it came up in our conversation about Mount Sinai's plans, one of these things, and that is sort of really figuring out the nursing home situation. So I know that always comes up and we talk about it. I don't know, where follow-ups are with, I mean, I guess just sort of continuing to focus on what we're doing about nursing homes, and the same thing I would say about the space at Essex Crossing for the school. I know that we're coming up on a deadline for that, and things will either happen or they won't. But I guess just sort of like some resolution, not a resolution as in writing a resolution, but some sort of, is that going to happen or not? Can it happen or not? I think
we can give an announcement on that.
Yeah, we have a little report on that, but yeah, that is
cool.
something it's a big project that we need to follow up with.
Cool.
And then
so those are the only two that sort of as far as goals for me, because they sort of, they're ongoing and important. So
right, and you're talking about the nursing home shortage and the big issue of nursing home shortage.
Yes.
In this area.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that the 5 minutes is up, and we have 4 different things, 4 very big topics. Okay, great. That was a great idea, David.
Great. Now people send in send it in. The language, refine them, etc. We'll work on next month. That'll be great.
Right. And then in looking at this, you might have some more, but these are 4 fairly substantial topics that we can start off with. Goals.
But I would also include in there exactly what is it that the committee is going to do. Like, are members of the committee going to do research, specifically, what are the action items?
Okay.
Yeah, goals should be measurable. You should be able to state this is the thing that will be done. I mean, it's one way to structure them, but it's helpful.
Yeah, some of these are not right now not worded as goals, but we need to reword them as goals, and they should be measurable. And this is within a year, right? We're only talking about a 1-year goal. Is that correct?
You could continue working on it after the year is up, but you would want to be able to say you accomplished something by the end of the year.
Okay, so that's why it needs to be broken down. Okay. All right. What is next? Okay, so next is the
CAB report.
yeah, CAB reports, and then after that, old new business. CAB reports. Gouverneur, Mount Sinai, Beth Israel. Larissa, was there a Gouverneur CAB meeting?
There was a Gouverneur CAB meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it this month. I don't know, Eric, were you able to attend?
Yes, there was. Would you like me to give you a brief report on Gouverneur?
Would you please? Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Give me 1 second. 1 second, sorry. Okay. So the Gouverneur CAB spoke with the administrative executives of Gouverneur at the skilled nursing facility and the ambulatory care. They reported that to date, there's been related to COVID-19 vaccinations at Gouverneur, over 2,100 vaccinations through Gouverneur, of which 1,500 were second doses and only 700 were first doses. So the CAB began to press in and inquire why that is. It's kind of a mixed bag response of from the administrative executives there, that they're one, limited on supplies for the vaccines, and then two, they agree that it needs to change and that they're following their protocols and procedures, want to up the number of first time doses. But as it stands, over 2,000 vaccinations that have been done at Gouverneur, and 1,500 again are second doses. And then just a final update on the urgent care center that's scheduled to be built out at Gouverneur. The task force is convening after a pretty long hiatus due to the COVID-19 epidemic. So I'll be part of that task force. And then also at the CAB meeting that just happened this Monday at Gouverneur, there is also a new task force being formed called the Vaccine Task Force. The chair of the CAB decided to put together a task force just to talk about vaccinations and how we can, just focus on that topic at Gouverneur. And they're going to meet next Tuesday. And again, I'm on that task force as well. So I'll provide some updates, maybe over email, next week. And that's pretty much it.
And yep, sorry, and I will be heading the vaccine task force as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I forgot to mention that as it relates to the skilled nursing facility, they did provide a total tally of deaths of seniors that were there. I believe it was a number either less than 20 of the 200 plus. I believe I got that number right. I'll double check with Susan Sales, the executive director there of the skilled nursing facility. And they're doing all their protocols, the limited visitations, and they're doing a lot of virtual offerings for the patients there at the skilled nursing facility. There is, lastly, to report, the staff at Gouverneur the majority have got their vaccinations, but there's still a number like 20% or so that is not vaccinated, and they're doing their best to encourage education to the staff and try to incentivize such incentives like paid time off if you get vaccinated. They're trying to encourage that culture of vaccinations for the staff. There's still some staff that are just refusing to get vaccinated. So that's kind of more or less some of the meat and potatoes of what happened at the CAB.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Shirley, did the Mount Sinai Beth Israel CAB meet?
They're meeting on the 8th. And actually, I have a conflict. I won't be able to go. I can send the invite. Brad just sent it yesterday, I think. So I'll send it to you and Susan, or if there's anybody that can attend, that would be great.
Okay, is there anyone here right now who can attend on the 8th?
I believe it's at 6:30.
March 8th. That's a Monday, right?
Yeah, it's Monday.
Okay, well, yeah, send it and we'll see.
Okay.
May, I wouldn't mind attending if you send me the information.
I can send it to you, Thomas.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good.
You want me to give the update for the school?
Oh, yeah, 1 minute. So I just want to let everyone know that the downtown Presbyterian Hospital also has a CAB, and Ricky Wong has been appointed to be the CB3 rep for that CAB, and they have a meeting coming up on March 10th. That's next week, I guess. And so in April, we will be hearing from Ricky about what's going on at downtown Presbyterian Hospital. Okay, Susan, you were going to give a report on the school,
So
right?
we found that the school land is under the jurisdiction of HPD. And Jim and I had a Zoom meeting with HPD, and first of all, they were surprised that there weren't any plans, or that DOE or School Construction Authority was so adamant about not having a school there. They didn't think there would be any problem with extending the timeline, and they were going to speak to other people at DOE and school construction and get back to us. But we had been afraid or thought that the land might revert back to the developer. That seems not to be true. It is definitely city land, and the city has no other plans for it at this moment.
Yeah, that's true. Susan, did she say something about that she had to find out that there was a school who wanted to use it temporarily?
They did say that, although I thought someone else on the call thought that that was too late for that. They did mention the possibility of someone else, but I don't see how that could be. Essex Crossing is also would like to be able to just temporarily use land as a public space, like maybe a farmer's market or that kind of thing, while it's not being used. But it doesn't seem to be any danger. It's certainly, there are no development plans.
If I recall, it was they were in some kind of talks with ICE for ICE to move their campus down to Essex Crossing, but it seems like that never materialized. ICE, Institute for Collaborative Education. It's a District 2. It's kind of a citywide school. It's a consortium school, but I think that's what we talked about last year, is they were talking to ICE. No,
I think Dominic was going to do that, but
Yeah,
there's certainly no plans. No plans.
So we did go. So we went. So it wasn't they. It was us. It was me and Dominic went to visit the school and talk to them about it, because they're co-located in this building. With the on 15th Street. The old Stuyvesant High School building. So they were looking for more space, and Dominic's kids go there, so that was the connection. And he was active in their parent association at the time. So we went to talk to the principal of the school, but there were a lot of unknowns and a lot of things for him to think about. So and that was it. So a year later, I remember he was supposed to come up with some kind of proposal or plan, and then a year later he hadn't done it yet. So he was, and it still hasn't been done yet. So I don't know what's going on.
I would forget about it.
Okay.
Time to go?
Yes.
Maybe.
Wait, no. Old new business, planning for April meeting. Shirley, did you have an agenda item that you want to put on for the April meeting?
Yeah, so I'll put together just a sort of a draft resolution, but I'd really like to have us give a statement regarding what kinds of supports we would like to see for back to school 2021, including, you know, mental health services, just addressing the data. I can put some of the data in the resolution, or I can provide it for the team. But just addressing the learning, the instructional loss that we've experienced, and then sort of what are our recommendations as to how we're going to, or how we'd like to see it handled. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot. You know, how are we addressing those kids who have never been to school that are going to start first grade? How are we addressing the mental health issues that might present themselves? How are we addressing students who don't ever want to go back to school again? How are we addressing, you know, just, I would like us to have some kind of a really clear statement regarding what we would like to see for back to school 2021.
Is there
Okay, so
any advocacy group or anyone you wanted to invite?
Oh, I don't know. I wouldn't know who to. Yeah, that's a good question.
See, so Shirley, we should, so we should think about,
okay,
not just, I mean, you can't just present us with a reso because there's a lot, because we're just going to be focused on this reso and not.
Sure.
So we need some information. We need an advocacy group. We need to know what we can do. Is it a reso, or do we need to write a letter to someone? You know,
yeah, I don't really know. It's just something that's been on my mind, and I wanted to bring it up and ask everybody else what they think.
Right. So are there advocates that we can invite to, you know, tell us, you know, to give us an idea? Yeah. It could be data, or just what the situation is, what the recommendations are, you know, and all that.
No one comes to mind for me right now, but maybe somebody else has an idea, and maybe I'll think about it too, but nothing comes to mind right now.
Anybody else? Any thoughts on this? All right, so, okay, so if we want to put it on for April, we have to start inviting a speaker pretty much like next week. Like, you know, we have to start sending out the invitation next week, and so that we can confirm them.
I don't have a person, so if nobody else does, then you know, I can continue to look, and then maybe it has to move to another agenda another month. I just don't right now. I can't think of anyone, but maybe I'll find someone, or maybe some of the other education people in the team could help.
Shirley, I can connect with you offline. I just want to make sure that I have a clarity around what it is that you're looking to accomplish. And so
yeah, we can talk.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thanks, Deborah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of groups working on education, but you know, I don't know which one. You know, on education, you know, for different populations. It's not all different groups for different populations. So, yeah. All right. So, okay, so we know we have, okay, so Deborah will work with Shirley a little bit. And if anybody has any ideas about this, about speakers, please let us know so we can start inviting somebody. Okay. So are we ready to have the final roll call to adjourn?
Yes.
Thomas? Okay, so you, oh, there you go.
Okay. This is our roll call. Mei Lee,
Yes.
Larissa,
Yes.
David,
Eu quiero un piquimelio mayor del mundo.
Eric,
That was for Heidi.
What he said.
Ditto. Shirley,
Yes.
Deborah,
Yep.
Paul,
Yes.
Heidi.
Sorry. Yes.
I got you, Paul. No problem. Heidi
Yes, yes, yes.
and Carmen.
Yes, and good night.
Okay. Have a good one, everyone.
I didn't get called.
I'm sorry, Ricky. Is this multitasking? I saw you on my right eye. I put you in. Sorry about that. You're there, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so see you soon at full board.